Exposed, the sinister case that haunted me as a coroner. 12 unexplained victims, forever. Cursed. The rain drummed against the coroner's office windows, a harsh waltz with the wind that set Sarah Jenks on edge. She stood frozen in place, her breath shallow. It wasn't just the cold that sent chills down her spine, it was the whisper of something insidious lurking in the corners of Cedar Grove, a place once adored for its warmth. Now, the only warmth she felt was the fiery dread creeping along her veins, sparking the thin line between reality and nightmare. 12 unexplained deaths. Families shattered. Terrors unspeakable. But in this secluded, comfortable town, who would truly believe it? Each corpse she examined bore a piece of her heart, pulling her deeper into the darkness. Today, as she inspected the 12th body, she sensed the weight of their collective stories folding over her like a heavy shroud. The sight of the gentle schoolteacher, now lifeless, her eyes closed forever, twisted a knife deep within Sarah's gut. She was the town's protector, the compassionate hand delivering closure. Yet, instead of comfort, she felt the suffocating grip of expectations tightening around her throat. The abandoned coroner's office lived up to its name, shadows stretching in the stale corners. The flickering fluorescent light did nothing to fight back the dark whispers that echoed her spiraling fears. Am I failing them? She thought. Am I losing my grip? The storm outside mirrored her inner turmoil as thunder thrummed like a heartbeat in her ears. Her hands trembled as she brushed her fingers across the cold skin. Something about this body felt unnatural. Just then, an eerie creak echoed through the silence, slicing through her concentration. She jumped back, breath hitching in her throat. The air shifted, oozing tension that made her skin crawl. Rationality screamed against the growing dread. It was just an old building, she told herself. But as she focused back on the body, the teacher's expression seemed altered, an accusatory glare woven into the stillness. Sarah shook her head, dismissing the thought, but she couldn't shake the feeling someone was watching. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The flickering intensified, shadows lengthening toward her, like the deceptive arms of a preying beast. She stumbled back, seeking solace but finding only the chilling reality of empty, cold walls. As she leaned into her thoughts, the archive she had begun to explore loomed like a monstrous specter. Papers littered the floor, dusty tomes revealing obscure rituals tied to a foundation of purity that had once proved to be sacrificial in nature. The air crackled with dread, the knowledge haunting her, a light into an abyss where unflinching community ties morphed into grotesque horrors. An icy breath enveloped her neck, drawing her to the lurking shadows. They clawed at the edge of her vision, a twisted parade of despair clouding her mind. Was Cedar Grove the tranquil sanctuary she thought? Or were they all ensnared in a web of malice thickening with every passing moment? Her heart thundered, the darkness amplifying her pulse until she was convinced the very walls were inching closer, suffocating her. Just as she caught a glint of movement in the shadows, the lights flickered one last time, plunging her into suffocating darkness. The whispers transformed into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and rising to a fever pitch. Something malevolent was closing in, a truth lurking just beyond grasp. As her heart raced and the whispers crowed with icy laughter, Sarah faced the undeniable sense that she was about to uncover the dark secret of Cedar Grove, a reality where belief became a trap. Would she dare confront it? Would she even survive? The darkness swallowed her whole. Gripped by fear, Sarah fumbled for the switch, her fingers grazing against the wall. The cold, peeling paint sent shivers through her. Each step felt like walking into a grave, and every sound echoed like a death knell. She wasn't ready for the truth, but instinct urged her forward. Her heart pounded in her chest, drowning out the unnatural whispers that twisted around her. Something shifted in the recesses of the room. A low, guttural laugh reverberated off unseen walls, slithering into her ears. She pressed her palms against her temples, trying to block it out, but the laughter only grew louder, morphing into agonized cries, voices of the victims she had failed. "Leave while you can," a voice murmured, distant but commanding. It was a pleading sound, layered with despair. She gasped, spinning around, desperate for a source. But there was only her own reflection in the glass of the lab cabinet, stretched and warped. Sarah felt like she was spiraling into madness, grasping at threads of sanity. She stumbled toward the desk, needing something solid to hold on to. Her trembling hands raked through the papers scattered across the worn surface. Rituals, old symbols, townsfolk names, each linked to a death, a tragedy. And they were all staring back at her. "Why can't anyone see this?" she whispered, hands clenching. Just then, a blinding light pierced the darkness. She squinted, forcing her eyes to adjust. A pair of glowing figures emerged from the shadows, faces twisted in agony, their mouths stretched wide in silent screams. Dread washed over her as she sought to flee, but her body betrayed her, paralyzed by horror. "Sarah," they beckoned, their voices reverberating through the air, a chilling harmony of sorrow and rage. "You must understand." Teeth clenched, she fought the urge to scream. "Understand what?" Her voice trembled, lost in the overwhelming presence of the specters. Before they could respond, another thundering clap broke through the stillness, rattling the windows. The light flickered, then sputtered out. Terrified, dark corners of the room crept in closer, consuming every remaining shred of light. Silence suffocated her, the oppressive air seemed to thicken till it felt tangible against her skin. She took a hesitant step back, only to trip over something cold and lifeless, another body. Panic surged as she dropped to her knees, fumbling in the pitch black. Her fingers brushed against something soft and warm, so unlike the cold she expected. "Come back." The whispers echoed, curdling her blood. A sudden burst of energy roared through her, and she pushed herself to her feet, fighting her way through the darkness. Her breaths came quick and shallow, a frantic rhythm of survival. She could feel the shadows reaching, the ground trembling beneath her. Whatever cursed cedar grove was alive, and it knew she was there. Just as she lunged toward the door, a bone-chilling laugh resonated through the corridor beyond, freezing her in place. "You cannot escape what you've uncovered. It will find you, Sarah." With a weight of terror sinking into her chest, she understood, this was just the beginning. Whatever bond the town shared, it was darker than she could imagine, and she was now a part of it, a player in a game woven through time, betrayal, and death. But as she steadied herself for what lay ahead, the floorboards creaked under the weight of something heavy. She turned slowly, heart pounding, seeing the darkness swirl into form. And that's when she realized the game was just starting, and she had no idea of the role she was destined to play. The darkness writhed around her, a living entity that closed in tighter with each breath. Sarah felt the walls pulse like a heartbeat, thrumming in rhythm with her own racing pulse. She closed her eyes, hoping to find a flicker of peace, but instead, the specters invaded her mind, those twisted faces from moments ago. "You must understand." Their words echoed in her head, leaving a chill that clawed at her bones. Wrenching herself back to reality, Sarah forced her feet to move, each step fighting against the heavy air. She stumbled into the nearest wall, her fingers tracing the rough surface, seeking some sense of direction. But all she felt was the suffocating grip of dread, as if the house itself yearned to silence her. She had to escape. The thought surged through her like a jolt of electricity. Yet, every instinct screamed at her to stay. There were answers hidden deep, answers that could unravel the sinister threads of Cedar Grove. Voices of the town's dead echoed through her consciousness, those who had vanished, wrapped in the dark. "Help us." It was a near silent plea that pierced through the fog of her fear. Heat pooled in her stomach, flowing out into determination. With a sudden burst of boldness, she turned on her heel and faced the room once more. Papers littered the desk, they held the secrets she craved. Reaching for a nearby candle holder, she flicked the match against the rough surface and watched the flame spring to life. The flickering light revealed more symbols, more names, letters that slithered one into another like the very shadows she feared. She scanned the desk, heart racing. Every detail bubbled to the surface, connecting the dots in a way she could barely comprehend. Then, she found a tattered journal wedged between the boards. The cover was rotted, but the pages were intact, and each word seemed to pulse with energy. An entry dated decades ago caught her eye, detailing an unholy ritual meant to bind the townsfolk to a darker force. The last line sent icy fingers down her spine: "They will come for what is theirs." A low growl reverberated from the back of the room, stopping her breath. Sarah spun, the flame flickering wildly. She felt it before she saw it, a presence thickening, forming out of the shadows. She could barely make out a figure, tall and looming, its eyes glinting like shards of glass in the candlelight. "Why do you linger?" The shadow hissed, voice a jagged whisper that gripped her throat. "You shouldn't have come here." Her body froze, instinct mingling with sheer terror. "I need the truth." Sarah spat back, her voice stronger than she felt. "Who are you?" The darkness seemed to ripple with laughter, an eerie echo that mocked her. "The truth will be your end. The town lives through its suffering. Are you willing to pay the price?" The air grew colder, and Sarah could see her breath materialize in front of her, each exhale shaking as she fought the rising tide of panic. "I have to try." Suddenly, the room exploded with a sharp crack, the candle flickering violently before a scream pierced through the surge. The ghostly figures reappeared, merging with the growing dread surrounding her, wailing and clawing at her sanity. "Sarah, save us," they cried, voices rising and falling like the tide. She turned, desperate for an escape, but the dark figure had inched closer, its breath a low rasp that filled the air. "You can't run from the truth, it follows you." In that moment, the weight of what the town harbored pressed down harder. As the shadows laughed, Sarah felt something twist deep within her, a chilling acceptance settling in her bones. When she turned toward the door, intent on making her escape, she could have sworn she saw something glowing beneath the floorboards, a pulsing light, beckoning her with a siren-esque call. Questions tangled in her mind, racing faster than her heartbeat. What lay hidden just beneath her feet? Was it the truth she sought, or something far worse? "Sarah, you have to make a choice." The whispers grew louder, drowning in a darkness of despair, and as she hesitated, trembling in the face of an impossible decision, the floor shook beneath her, and the lights dimmed to black once more. The floor trembled violently under Sarah's feet, her body teetering as if caught in a storm. The candle flickered out, plunging her into an abyss that engulfed any trace of light. She gasped for breath, the air thickening, suffocating her resolve. The whispers were now a chaotic chorus, spinning around her head. Choose. With a surge of instinct, she whipped back towards the desk, her trembling fingers scrambling to find purchase. The journal. She had to see it again, to cling to the last piece of reality amid the chaos. Her heart thudded in her chest as she fumbled in the blackness, trying to remember the contours of the desk by touch. Suddenly, the low growl returned, rumbling like thunder, vibrating through the very bones of the house. It was closer now. The air felt electric, charged with something dark and feral. Sarah's blood ran cold as she heard the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps slamming down the floorboards, inching toward her, inexorably, relentlessly. "Don't let them take you." A voice pierced through the din, sharper, clearer than the others. It belonged to a young girl, fragile and faint, her echo reminiscent of laughter now twisted and broken. "They won't stop. They'll eat you alive." Sarah's breath hitched. "Who are you? What do you want?" She shouted into the void, her voice reflecting the frantic pulse of her heart. The shadow paused, as if considering her words, before the darkness rippled again, forming a shape tentative but now more defined. "What you seek is your undoing," it croaked, as if the very air around it conspired to drown her out. "Please. I need to understand." She felt small, her words dangling in the oppressive air, weighted down with fear, but then, in a flash, the presence lunged at her. It was a blur of dark, a twisted visage that exploded out of the obscurity. Glaring eyes locked onto hers, engulfing her in a sorrowful abyss that seemed endless, threatening to consume her entirely. The shadows screamed, echoing back the dark reality she feared. She realized the truth was there in the darkness, within that consuming maw, waiting to be unveiled. A surge of defiance blossomed within her as she recalled the journal, the secrets it held. The townsfolk, the rituals. Was it all for you? But those words hung heavy, carried away by the swirling shadows. For the presence didn't respond, only moved closer, an engulfing wave of despair closing in. Panic flooded her senses as she spun away from it. The pulsing light beneath the floorboards was undeniable, calling her like a moth to flame. Maybe it was salvation. Or maybe it was a final trap. She dove toward the source, praying it wasn't just a mirage in the depths of her fear. Falling to her knees, she clawed at the floorboards, splintering wood under her nails. The light throbbed, brightening, illuminating the spectral faces around her, lingering with desperate pleas. "Save us, Sarah," they echoed. "You're our only chance." With a final push, the wood splintered away, revealing a small, intricately carved box, glowing softly. The energy radiating from it felt alive. But the moment she touched it, the air around her sharpened, the shadows screamed louder. The walls shuddered, urging her to choose. "Take it or let it all go," the looming figure whispered. Her chest tightened. Could she trust the light? Or would this box bring her the same fate as the town's vanished souls? The growling loomed like a freight train about to smash through her reality, the walls pressing in. Time was slipping away. "Make your choice, Sarah." As the shadows clawed at her sanity, the box pulsed again, burning through the air with an enticing warmth that threatened to drown out the darkness. It was now or never, and just then, the ground quaked even harder. Would she embrace the light, or would she succumb to the dark? As the whispers crescendoed into manic screams, she felt the essence of Cedar Grove closing in. What would she find inside that box? An unearthly howl surged through the room as the darkness lunged, and the lights blurred into chaos. The box burst open, a blinding light flooding the room and momentarily pushing back the encroaching shadows. A sharp, slicing pain struck through Sarah's palm as the box's edge dug into her flesh. She gasped, the smell of iron mixing with the earthy scent of decay all around her. "Take it, take it." The figures around her implored, their faces morphing with desperation. She blinked against the brightness, the intensity overwhelming her senses. Inside the box were relics, small, fragile items, a withered flower, a tarnished key, and a piece of parchment that fluttered despite the stillness. The parchment was inscribed with frantic, curling handwriting that seemed to shift just out of focus. A desperate urgency seized her as she snatched the parchment, the rest forgotten. "Give it to them." The girl's voice echoed, rising above the chaos. "They can't be freed without it." Fingers trembling, Sarah resisted the nausea threatening to overtake her. The darkness was tightening like a vice around her throat, thrusting her into a dizzying spiral. She had to act. What was the price of salvation? The whispers turned frantic, crescendoing into a cacophony that merged into a single voice. "We were wronged. You must deliver to who?" Sarah shouted, feeling the room spin. A shadow waved in the corner of her vision. It was wrong. So wrong. Before she could process, the key leapt from the box, hovering in mid-air before darting toward the door. It embedded into the aged wood, twisting and turning until the door creaked open, revealing a corridor draped in darkness, shadows swimming in and out of view. "Go. Go." The girl urged, the urgency palpable in her tone. Heart racing, Sarah stumbled toward the door, feeling the pull of something unseen. But as she stepped forward, the growling returned, fiercer, reverberating in the marrow of her bones. The shadows surged behind her, a mass of dark, howling emptiness, desperate to reclaim her. "You'll regret it," they screeched, drawing closer still. "Don't look back," the girl commanded, her voice breaking. Torn between two worlds, Sarah hesitated for a mere second. A flicker of movement behind her, a dark figure lunged, slashing through the air, just missing her as she tore through the doorway. She stumbled into the corridor, the oppressive weight of the dark pushing against her like a wave. The hall was a tomb, dust and decay hung heavily in the air. She blinked against the darkness, gradually making out the shadows of more doors lining the yet unseen passage. With every step, she felt the presence behind her, felt its hunger, its palpable desire to snatch her back into the abyss. "Find them," the voice whispered, sounding distantly familiar. "Set them free." She pressed onward, rummaging through her mind, piecing together the cryptic warnings and tales from the journal. Each door could hold the answers. Each one possibly a fate worse than the last. She could feel the fingers of despair graze her neck. She had to make a choice now, before the shadows swallowed her whole. The first door to her right radiated an unsettling glow. As she reached for the handle, the walls shook, groaning as if the house was alive. It was hungry. But as she inhaled deeply, steeling herself against the terror, the handle twisted beneath her fingers. "What awaits me?" she whispered, knowing she might not like the answer. And with a deep breath, she swung the door open, the eerie light flooding her vision and swallowing her last shred of certainty. A distant voice echoed, softer now, a tether in the darkness. "Remember, you sought the truth. Whatever lay beyond the threshold was lurking, waiting to strike." Would it be a chance for salvation or the final snare of Cedar Grove? What horrors would she unravel within these walls? The door creaked open, revealing a room steeped in shadows and thick with a chilling fog. It was small, the walls peeling with age, and a single candle flickered on a rickety table, casting dancing shadows that seemed to taunt her. The fragrance of mildew and something metallic hung heavy in the air, sending a shiver down her spine. "Where am I?" Sarah murmured, her voice barely breaking the oppressive silence. The candle flickered again, illuminating something on the table. A photograph. Peering closer, her stomach twisted. It was a family smiling, carefree, each face etched with a sense of foreboding. A chill crawled down her back when she picked it up and noticed the small, faded carvings on the edge of the frame. Each name was followed by a date, all too familiar. She recognized one, the year of her own brother's disappearance. "No," she whispered, shaking her head as dread twisted in her gut like a knife. "This can't be." Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the shadows beyond the candlelight. Heart racing, she turned toward it, the fight-or-flight instinct kicking in hard. Breath sharpened into ragged gasps. It was a primal fear, an instinctive recognition of the danger lurking just beyond her vision. "Find them." The whisper trailed off again, stronger this time, more insistent. "They are waiting." "What do you want from me?" Sarah screamed into the void, her voice strained. The room responded only with silence, the shadows closing in like a noose. Then, as if summoned by her desperation, forms began to materialize in the corners. Flickers of faces, twisted with anguish, eyes wide and pleading. "Help us." One rasped, its voice a haunting echo. "We cannot rest." The candle flickered violently, almost snuffed out, and in that moment, Sarah felt the temperature drop, a bone-deep chill sweeping through her. The figures began to shift closer, their spectral hands reaching out, the air thrumming with their desperate energy. With instinct pulling her back toward the door, she clutched the photo tightly. "Stay away from me!" she cried, her legs feeling like lead, but the shadows were relentless, encroaching with a suffocating weight. She could feel the pulse of the house, as if it lived and breathed around her, hunting her heartbeats. It knew her fear, it thrived on it. "Remember," they echoed like a lament, "you sought the truth." She squeezed her eyes shut, summoning all her strength and will. Desperation clawed at her throat, threatening to drown her. Instinctively, she tucked the photo into her shirt, feeling the cold chill of its edge against her skin. Maybe, just maybe, it held the key to unraveling this darkness. "Run!" she screamed, catalyzing movement in her legs. The shadows recoiled slightly, a moment of confusion giving her a breath of space. She bolted toward the door, throwing herself through it just as it began to close on its own, the shadows snarling behind her. She stumbled back into the corridor, the hunger of the darkness still pressing on, snapping at her heels, but now was not the time to despair. She had a fragment of truth. She had to find the others, the names etched in that photo. They were a clue, perhaps a way to understand what the house wanted. As she raced down the hallway, dodging grasping shadows, she came to a fork where two more doorways loomed. To the left, an ominous growl rumbled deep from within. To the right, a soft light glimmered as though offering some hope. Clenching her jaw, Sarah felt her heart thumping like a war drum. She could either confront the predator or chase the phantom of illumination. With every muscle tense, she stood at the crossroads. Which path would reveal the secrets of Cedar Grove? And which one would lead her into the abyss? She took a step toward the right door, feeling the weight of every name on her shoulders. There was no going back. The truth awaited her, for better or for worse. The door creaked wider, letting out a wave of warmth that felt almost inviting. But it was false, a fleeting illusion of safety. Sarah stepped into the room, eyes scanning for threats while her heart thundered in her chest. As the door clicked shut behind her, she was engulfed in a soft, golden glow that danced beautifully around the space. Her breath caught. A small room, the walls decorated with delicate flowers painted in vibrant hues. But the beauty was deceptive. She caught a glimpse of something eerie in the corners, shadows moving against the light, shifting like restless spirits. "Why am I even here?" she whispered, each word like a pebble dropped into a dark abyss, never to return. A large mirror hung on the opposite wall, its surface murky. The edges were framed in ornate gold, yet the reflections twisted back at her, distorting her features into something grotesque. Her own face grinned back maliciously, eyes hollow, as if mocking her for stepping into the light. "Look closer," a voice cooed, sweet yet menacing. It seemed to emanate from the mirror itself, causing a cold sweat to bead on her brow. Against her better judgment, Sarah moved closer, her heartbeat crescendoing as she leaned in, trying to pierce beyond the glass. Shadows shifted again, this time forming into eerie shapes. Scenes began to unfold, flickering like a movie, each moment twisted and broken. Former lives, former joys, now all draped in devastation. One scene caught her attention. A young girl, eerily familiar, danced joyous and free. But the moment fractured, darkness swept in, and all that remained was silence. A racking sob echoed through the room, like a symphony of despair. It reverberated reality itself, attacking Sarah's senses. No. She pressed a trembling hand against the glass, her fingers cool against its surface. "This can't be real." "Real enough," the voice retorted, a satisfied purr that made her stomach churn. "They need you to remember. They need you to uncover the truth." Suddenly, the mirror began to ripple, shadows spilling out like ink into water. A dark figure emerged, partially obscured but unmistakably sinister. It turned its hollowed gaze towards her, a hunger evident behind its spectral eyes. It pointed directly at her with a skeletal hand, as if to claim her. "Help us." A whisper exploded from the dark, its urgency suffocating. Sarah staggered backward, colliding with the delicate wallpaper. The calm light transformed into a dim, flickering haze. Panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't just stand there. She needed answers, she needed to escape, to piece together the fragments spinning in her mind. With determination ripping through her fear, she turned back toward the door, the mirror's grip loosening around her senses. But just as she flicked the handle, the dim light turned to midnight. The shadows danced wildly across the room, stretching toward her, reaching for her limbs, begging for something she didn't understand. "Do not leave," came the chorus of whispers. "You will not find them if you turn away." Instinctively, she opened the door, but a chill enveloped her, the air suddenly thick with despair. Whispered names filled her ears, pairs of pleading eyes flared up in the darkness. The weight of the house bore down on her again, as if it were alive, craving her to stay. "Find the truth," the voice urged, echoing within the confines of her mind. With a burst of adrenaline, Sarah tore away from the doorway, reversing course to the ominous dark that pulsed along the left path. There was no turning back now, no hesitation. She had to face whatever haunted this place, face the shadows lurking in the depths, but the weight of expectation loomed over her like a thundercloud. What awaited her within the darkness? Would she uncover the truth or become another lost name on that tainted photograph? The shadows rushed at her, a cacophony of whispers drowning out her thoughts. She pressed on, her pulse strumming loudly in her ears, every heartbeat a reminder of the danger lurking in the spaces she dared to tread. With each step deeper into the darkness, the warmth of the earlier room felt like a distant memory, replaced by a biting cold that seeped through her skin. The air thickened as Sarah ventured further into the gloom, her hands trembling by her sides, searching for anything that might help her make sense of the horror unfolding. Flickering lights barely illuminated the hallway, casting sickly shapes that seemed to slink back as she approached, retreating into the shadows. They enticed her with promises of forgotten secrets yet warned her of dangers that lay ahead. "Face your fears," the voice echoed again, now louder, more insistent, a dark lullaby luring her onward. In front of her, the silhouettes began to take form, reflections of the memories she had seen in the mirror. Each figure was trapped, they moved back and forth in a loop, desperately trying to escape a fate she could not fathom. Freezing, she recognized the girl from the earlier vision. Tears streamed down her face as she reached out, searching for solace in an impossibly thin veil between life and despair. "Help us!" The cries rang out again, increasing in urgency, laced with horror that rattled deep within Sarah. They were trapped souls, each pleading gaze struck her like an ice pick, piercing her heart. A knot of guilt began tightening in her chest. They believed in her, even when she barely believed in herself. "Why can't you speak? Why can't you tell me what you want?" Sarah shouted, her voice trembling. She pounded her fists against the wall, frustration surging through her. The figures halted, their eyes growing wider, absorbing the fading light of hope. Then, behind her, a noise, a soft shuffle like the faint footsteps of someone waiting in the darkness. Her breath hitched. She turned slowly, her whole body frozen with fear. The corners of her vision darkened, the shadows expanding like a living being, hungry for her anxiety. Something or someone was lurking, drawn to the chaos around her. "Do you think you can turn away?" A voice whispered softly, yet it sliced through the air like a serrated blade. It slithered around her, invasive and menacing, casting a veil of unease over her tiny space. The darkness seemed almost to pulse with anticipation, heart racing. Sarah's mind raced faster. She thought of escape, scrambling for options, clawing toward survival. But what if survival meant confronting the truth? What if the barriers of time and memory needed to be breached so she could save them, save herself? As she tightened her fists, she felt a spark within, igniting the desperation that fueled her. She had to know. What truth? She shouted into the void. "What do you need me to find?" The answer came as a low drone, enveloping her senses. "Your name." A blinding light erupted from the shadows, and for a split second, Sarah felt like she was being torn between two worlds. It washed over her, drowning her in warmth. But behind it, something more sinister surged, roiling with faraway cries, as if urging her to remember what she'd long forgotten, the secrets buried beneath layers of fear. "Your name is the key." The words sliced through the air, transcending the chaos. As the light engulfed her, Sarah realized the words weren't just about discovery, they were a warning. To face who she was meant, surrender everything she thought she knew, everything she thought she wanted. If she was meant to save them, what part of her would perish in the process? Suddenly, the lights flickered out, leaving her engulfed in darkness. She was alone. Or was she? The shadows shifted closer now, breathing down her neck. They whispered her name, her true name, in echoes of a past long buried, awakening something dark and ancient. What had she forgotten? What price would she pay for returning? And as her mind spiraled deeper into the abyss of fear, she felt the firm grip of fate tightening, whether she liked it or not. What would she do when faced with the dreadful truth of her very existence? The shadows coiled tighter around her, each whisper curling into tendrils that seemed to claw at the air. Sarah felt the icy grip of dread clench her throat as she stood in darkness. Everything felt heavier now, like weights pulling her down, keeping her from escaping this nightmare. The flickering lights resumed, ghostly, almost mocking, revealing more figures, their faces fragmented in silvery flashes. They reached out with trembling hands, mouths moving, but no sound escaped. Their anguish seemed to pierce through the silence, mingling with Sarah's own rising terror. "Your name," the voice echoed again, more desperate this time, a lifeline submerged in chaos. But what did that even mean? Her name. Did it hold the answers she sought? In that moment of swirling confusion, she chanted it silently to herself like a prayer, as if reciting it could unravel the snare that bound her. Sarah from the corner of her eye, the shadows jerked and flickered, distorting into shapes of people she didn't recognize. They morphed into terrified faces, voices rising louder, melding into a crescendo that pulsed violently. "Sarah!" They all cried, a cacophony of despair. "Save us! You're our only hope." Her pulse quickened. Desperation clawed at her chest, a vice tightening with every anguished plea. She closed her eyes for a moment, steeling herself. "I can't, I don't even know how." "Face your fears." A shudder flowed through her resolve. This wasn't just a twisted echo. It was a challenge, a trial. A voice only she could hear. With tentative steps, she moved deeper into the shadows, her heart pounding against desperation's walls. Memories surged like tides, pushing and pulling. Each recollection felt sticky, reluctant to let her pass. Visions swirled her childhood laughter, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the day everything changed. "Sarah!" A throat-wrenching scream erupted from behind her. The girl, the one from her visions, was back, her form flickering in the darkness, fear etched onto her face. She seemed to float, suspended between two realities. "Don't leave me. You must remember." Panic gripped Sarah like a vice. What was it she needed to remember? She could feel something lurking, not just in the shadows but somewhere deep inside her, something buried, fragile and ready to crack. "Your name." The shadows twisted like dancers mourning the loss of their songs. They bore witness to her turmoil, deep and ancient, as if her hidden truth could send ripples across the fabric of this forsaken place. "Who am I?" She cried into the void, the weight of the question crashing over her like a wave. The darkness seemed to pause, catching its breath as if savoring her despair. In the silence, something shifted. A memory unfurled in the corners of her mind, a name, not just Sarah. Her heart raced as flashes exploded. Abandonment, fear, betrayal. Just then, cold fingers gripped her wrist from behind, icy and clammy. "You must find the truth, Sarah. You must remember, or we are all lost." She spun around, caught in a whirlwind of specters, and stared into the void behind her. There, looming at the fringes of her vision, was a figure tall, twisted, and dark. Its eyes glowed with ferocity, betraying longing and anguish. "Who are you?" A low, rumbling chuckle reverberated through the air. "You'll find out soon enough, little girl. The truth has a cost, and the price is paid in memories." The shadows coiled tighter, constricting her like a predator closing in for the kill. Could she unravel it all before it swallowed her whole? Before the darkness turned her into another lost soul, another shadow bereft of hope? As darkness surged with a rumbling pulse, she knew she had to confront this entity. But could she brave the depths of her own pain? What awaited her at the edge of this abyss? How far was she willing to go to save the lost souls and herself? The shadows twisted around Sarah like a predator toying with its prey. She stood frozen, heart racing, each pulse echoing against the suffocating darkness. The figure loomed closer, its hollow eye sockets boring into her, a distorted reflection of her buried fears and memories. Trembling, Sarah managed to lift her chin, defiance blazing against panic. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted, though the quiver in her voice betrayed her. "I know why you're here. You want me to remember." The figure paused, the corners of its mouth twisting into a grotesque semblance of a smile. "Ah, yes, the memory," it hissed, voice oozing with malice. "A journey of sorrow awaits. Are you ready to pay the price?" "I'm ready." The determination surged within her. I've come this far. I want to let you take me. I'll unlock the truth, for all of them, my brother, those who suffered here. I'll free them. The figure seemed intrigued, swirling shadows drawing closer. Your resolve is admirable, but you must embrace your deepest fears, only then shall you find the key. A tidal wave of emotions crashed over Sarah. Memories flashed through her, comforting moments intermingled with the darkness of loss and despair. Panic fluttered in her chest, but she took a deep breath, summoning the strength that had manifested itself within her. I won't be afraid anymore. I will say their names. I will remember. As she spoke, the air thickened, shadows hesitating, recoiling as if they were averse to her words. She took a step towards the looming darkness, watching in awe as flickers of light began to break through the oppressive twilight surrounding her. Megan, Ashley, Tom, each name escaped her lips, resonating with compassion. They deserve peace. I will remember. I bring their memories with me. With every name, the pull of the darkness slackened, and the figures of the lost souls stepped out from the void. Their eyes shone with gratitude. Thank you, Sarah, they whispered fiercely. Remember us. Set us free. As she recited the final names, Sarah felt a warmth spreading through her, an electric pulse reverberating against the chilling presence. I will free you. I will find the truth hidden within. The figure howled a sound of rage and anguish as shadows screamed and writhed, reacting violently against the light born from her courage. You cannot. It bellowed, but Sarah pressed forward, the light shining brighter, illuminating the path she had forged through unyielding darkness. You are nothing without their pain. She shouted back, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. Their stories bind you, but I will rewrite the ending. I will unearth the truth. Bolstered by the shimmering strength of the memories, she thrust her hand toward the figure, energy crackling in the air. A blinding light erupted from her palm, exploding through layers of despair. The darkness recoiled, flickering like a dying flame, until it shattered, dissolving into the ether. As silence descended, the remnants of shadows peeled away, revealing a radiant light surrounding her. The faces of the lost souls materialized, rising in joyous freedom. Thank you. They celebrated, voices unified in a harmony that bypassed sorrow for peace. Sarah, a soft whisper filled her ears, pulling her attention. The girl with familiar eyes, the one who had beckoned so many times before, stood before her, radiant and free. You saved us. You remembered. Sarah smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. We did this together. She felt lighter, almost ethereal, the remnants of fear fading into resolve. In that serene moment, the essence of Cedar Grove shifted. The oppressive air lifted, replaced by a gentle breeze that set shadows dancing instead of withdrawing. The town, once haunted, now brimmed with the echoes of stories both told and untold, each placing a chip of light into the fabric of the place, but within her bloomed an undeniable ache, the realization that loss would always linger. Yet Sarah knew her brother's name, the names of the lost, and their memories would reignite hope amongst shadows. As she stepped back into the light of a new dawn, a warm smile stretched across her face. Cedar Grove was no longer cursed, it was a living testament to resilience, survival, and the importance of remembering those who came before. Now with every breath, she felt the weight of purpose, protective, guiding, unwavering. Cedar Grove would thrive again. And with a heart full of their stories, Sarah stepped forward, knowing she would forever cherish each name, and her final whisper carried with it love, strength, and honor. They will never be forgotten. Now it's your turn to step forward. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What did you think? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of keeping this story alive.